I've been an indie game developer for over 2.5 years now, and I just got the first payments for a game that I made. Yeah, I was in the AAA industry for 10 plus years, but this is the first paycheck that I've gotten for a game that I made all on my own. Most of the development time has been spent on Fist of the Forgotten, but recently I decided to participate in the Ludum Dare Game Jam and make a little game called Goop Loop, which I then promptly extended and put on Steam in early access. Fist of the Forgotten was just taking way too long, and I thought this might be a good chance to test my hypothesis that it might be more viable to make 20 $1 games than one $20 game. In the end, I kind of split the difference and decided to go with $2 or $1.99 because I guess people still fall for that 1 cent difference, and Steam doesn't actually let me set the exact price. After 2 months of early access, my payment came through. I have it right here. Total of $128.44. I didn't even get a payment the first month because Steam has a minimum limit of $100 before they start processing transactions. And if you take the $100 fee that I paid to list the game out, I've got a whopping $28.44. As long as we disregard the cost of living during the development time, I suppose that could be considered a profit. If we're being realistic, maybe don't quit your full-time job to become a full-time indie developer. It's just difficult to sell games in 2021. This was a rushed project, and I still think it represents the average, or maybe even above average, experience of an indie game developer. Some people spend years of their life, countless nights, pulling their hair out, living off ramen noodles, only end up with similar numbers. Well, let's just dive down into the charts and graphs of the sales numbers. So this is after the game first went live. Sold 20 copies, and then it rapidly dropped off 14, and then we're quickly down to 2 or 3 copies. And here's something that really bothers me about the Steam graphs is they don't accurately represent when you sold 0 copies. So you might believe that from November 28th all the way to December 4th, I was selling 2 copies a day. However, there's no actual data here, so it just draws a line in between there. So all of these days, there were 0 copies sold. Now, if we move on over here, this day where we had 7 copies, this, I believe, was when Wow Jinxie was going out and doing some pretty strong campaigning for the game and telling a whole bunch of streamers about it. I think he said 1,000 different people or something like that. So about 1% conversion rate there. Then we drop back down to 1 or 2 copies a day, and over here is when Curdle Games played the game on stream. I had rated Curdle Games a while back, and he was very appreciative that I did that, and it kind of helped jumpstart his streaming career. So he was super enthusiastic to play the game and actually bought a bunch of copies for some of his viewers and community members. Some of them also bought copies, so grand total of 9 units sold that day. And then dropped back down. I can't remember if there was anything specific that happened there. But yeah, mostly just 1 to 3 copies a day. And then again, we've got some days in between where it's just drawing the line there where it didn't actually sell any copies. Averaging 2 copies a day sold during that period. Just to put things in perspective, I have over 7,000 followers on Twitch, 1,500 on Twitter, 378 on YouTube, and I'm getting close to 1,000 on TikTok. I also have over 300 users on my Discord server. I don't necessarily have a massive following, but I'm not a complete unknown either. I just want to be completely open with these numbers and what you can expect if you're sitting in a similar situation. Building up a community is pretty key to getting any sales these days. Almost all of the sales have either been people from my community, people that I've directly interacted with, or people that people from my community have contacted. There's really only a couple instances I know of where people of unknown origins have somehow acquired the game. And Windows just blue screened in the middle of working on this. As if this video wasn't depressing enough as it is. Keep in mind, I'm not trying to be all doom and gloom here, but I do feel it is important to be realistic. And hopefully informative too. Everybody loves an underdog story, but if you only watch videos of indie developers who sacrifice everything and somehow become successful in the end, it sort of sets unrealistic expectations. What about the other 90+% of developers who made a game and it just flops? I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't gamble things you can't afford to lose in hopes that you'll make it big when your game releases. The odds aren't exactly in your favor. So how can we improve those odds? Well, let's take a look at what I did and what I could maybe do better. First, I really rushed the game. I wanted to get the game out in early access as quickly as possible while it was still fresh in the minds of people that had played it during the game jam. In retrospect, that was a very small audience, and I probably should have built up some more wish lists and interest to make the algorithms a little more favorable. I could have also spent more time making the game, screenshots, and trailer more appealing before I made the Steam page public. I don't know if that honestly would have made a difference. I'm pretty sure I couldn't have brought the Steam wish lists up to the point where they needed to be in order to make it show up in the new and trending list. If you don't make it on that list, your launch numbers are basically dead. For a quick turnaround title, I'm not really sure how you build that up when you've only got a couple months to have people wishlist it. Maybe you could have a whole bunch of games like queued up and staggered and release them like a year after they're actually done so that there's time for the wishlist to build up. But I'm not sure what the approach for those like quick turnaround, small time investment games would be. The thing that's challenging now is there's so much you have to do at just a bare minimum. Like, you have to build a following on social media, you got to build up a Discord, you got to contact the press and the streamers and YouTubers, and then if none of that gets traction, what do you do? It's really easy to lose steam, like, after you contact a whole bunch of press outlets and don't get any responses or get, like, a not interested. Like, it's difficult to motivate yourself to keep going. I got a couple articles posted, but most places obviously had bigger fish to fry. I think one thing that can really help is to get all of the press notifications prepared ahead of time, because if you're trying to do it like at the same time or after the whole process of releasing and pushing out a game, like, you're already going to be burned out from that, and it's really difficult to motivate yourself to continue to do all of these additional like PR related tasks. So get that stuff prepped ahead of time. That's one mistake I think I made there. Another possible mistake I made was not having something the players could connect or relate to. Like, just having a blob of goop in a loop is not really something most people are gonna relate to or be drawn to. So I added a face to the goop, and I'm hoping that will help in the future, but we'll see how that pans out. Unfortunately, it didn't seem like it had a huge impact so far. Like, Kimmy Kim streamed the game and had like 140 some people watching for a couple hours, and she was really getting into it. And I just patched in the face on the goop, and I was like, yeah, this is a great day. Like, this is going to have a big impact on sales. And I think I had like one sale that day. So that was kind of underwhelming. Another thing I could do better at is more aggressive marketing. Like, when I talk to people, they're actually pretty receptive to indie devs and checking out indie games, but I just don't do it enough. I don't talk to enough people. I don't interact with enough streamers. And it's kind of difficult to justify the amount of time necessary to get like one sale, which I think what I need to do is bump the price up. And I'm planning to do that. So maybe if I bump the price up, I can spend more time interacting with people and it's a little more justified. But at the moment, it's kind of crazy. It's like, even if I didn't have to spend any time doing development and I spent all of my time marketing, you know, if you spend like an hour or two to get one sale, that's just getting a couple dollars an hour is just not going to cut it. But maybe if I'm not going to bump the price up significantly, but I'm going to bump it up maybe like $4. I don't know what the magic threshold is there, because it's like, I've got to make it high enough that I can justify the investment to make a sale, but low enough that it's still tempting enough for people to impulse buy. And I think that kind of turns my theory on its head about having a whole bunch of cheap games, because if I had a whole bunch of cheap games, how would I find the time to market them all, unless just having a huge collection of games sort of kind of creates this snowball effect. I don't know what I'm trying to say there. I'm getting tired. Also, with a little bit of a higher price point, that means I could potentially afford to pay for marketing. Right now at $2 a pop, I don't think the cost to pay for advertisements I don't think I'd even be able to recoup that cost, let alone make a profit. Another thing I could try, maybe just on future projects, is going with a publisher. It may be a little bit late for Goop Loop, although it's possible maybe I could get a publisher to publish it in a different region, maybe pay for a voice actor in another language, and it might take off that way. But it would be kind of interesting to do an experiment where I make another small game like this that I just work on for a few weeks and go to a publisher and try to have them publish it. I don't know how many publishers would be interested in some like sub $5 game, but I'm sure there's some out there, and maybe they could do a better job of getting the game out there and getting people to play it and buy it. The thing I find kind of crazy is that if these are the kind of numbers you can expect with a community of my size, then if you scale up that community to get enough sales in order to be profitable, by that point, you don't really need to sell the game anymore. Like, I'm making close to $200 a month from things like Twitch subs and donations. And if you just scale that up by, you don't even have to do much math to realize that'd be a substantially higher number than what I'm getting in sales right now. So, oh yeah, speaking of which, I should do a shout out to my patrons, because these awesome people are giving me a lot more runway so that hopefully I can figure this whole indie dev thing out before running out of cash. I saw one indie dev do a breakdown of his income, and like less than 30% of it was actually from game sales, which really makes you wonder, is it really worth even making games when you could just spend more time doing like all of the other stuff that actually makes more money? Like, there's a lot of people that are successful building communities and streaming and just playing games and making art and stuff for their community. And you could just do a bunch of that and probably make way more money. And if you become big enough, game devs might actually pay you to play their games. It's really just kind of absurd. Like, making a game just by itself is an insurmountable task by so many people. And yet, we're required to do all of this additional stuff on top of actually creating the game just to make ends meet. There's still a lot of stuff left to try to boost the Goop Loop sales, and Goop Loop has been a bit of an experiment. It's sold about like what I expected, but not what I had hoped. I did make back the $100 though for the Steam submission fee, and that was the super low bar that I'd set for this. So I guess it has been a success. And I'm just going to leave on that positive note.